before we get to the audience questions, just want to kind of warm it up by just asking like a little bit about each of the films. I'll start with Lauren, and Belly at the end. Yeah, writer, star, producer, personal story. I'm not sure how much of this.
How dare you?
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty obvious that I have an unassailable and incredibly strong relationship with food and my body. So it mostly came from that. And from there, it just became a question of how can we tell a story that is about two sort of AFAB people dealing with eating disorders without it being an issue film. We both find having eating disorders tremendously funny because there's a complete lack of logic to everything in your brain, so.
Yeah, it's kind of like talking about eating disorders, but also discussing the language of food, like, and eating as it's going on. Was it always going to happen with like the third act twist? Because of it being like body dysmorphia into like a straight, I'm gonna eat a finger horror type thing?
This is actually kind of a funny story. So I always knew that there needed to be something and then it needed to be disgusting. That being said, this was very much a crowdfunded production, which means that we crowdfunded and then I paid for the rest of it. So, all of that to say, I had all of these wild ideas about like, oh, I want Alyssa to cut her own stomach open, and then I want to see her eat her intestines like spaghetti. And so I'm trying to like figure out how to make any of this work. And I was on a hike with my friend Dasha, who was also our makeup artist, and she was like, oh, well, I've actually got a photorealistic finger prop. It's like a $7,000 prop. Do you want to borrow it? And so yes. And that also leads to like the sucking the finger into the mouth. It just happened to be the perfect prop to allow the slurping and the sort of like weirdness. So a lot of that just came through on set and happened to work out.
A little bit of plan comes together.
Yeah.
Strawberry Shortcake, the U.S. premiere. This is the first audience to see this film in the United States. It's also made aware that this is like a student film, Columbia University, and congratulations. I mean, that's such a big deal, and it's so accomplished for being, you know, a student film and having its debut here. Like, thanks for being here so much. Do I have a
Thank
question?
you.
Yeah, I do have a question. It's sort of like a riff almost on like the Oedipus complex, and like when we go into something like that, we're not normally seeing it through like, I guess, a female lens or a gaze in this kind of way. And I was just curious if you could talk like just a little bit about like the origin story of like how the film sort of came to be.
Yeah, so part of it is, it's actually a very personal, there's a very personal story somewhere in there, but no, not entirely, I'm okay.
That was my next question.
Yes, so don't worry, and but it's just, I've always had this very intense relationship with my mother, and growing up as a queer woman, I never really just understood why that was. And then I was sitting in this class, this psychoanalysis class, and people talk about Freud all the time, and there's, you know, the Oedipal complex, but it's always between mother and son. So I asked my professor what would the term be, or is there any research on mother and daughter relationships? And she couldn't answer me. And then so we did a bunch of research, and there's not even a term for it. And I just thought, well, I mean, I think it's time for some representation in media on that. So.
That's a very good answer to a very vague question, so I appreciate that. How many cakes were harmed in the film?
15.
15? Okay,
Yeah,
there's
4 days.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a 4-day shoot?
It's a 4-day shoot, yeah.
Okay, wow, okay, tremendous work. Thanks for being here.
And thank you for my producer, Pierre, who flew to Taiwan. We shot it in Taiwan, and he was amazing.
All the cakes were red taped in the fridge. They were like protected.
For your film, it's really, really a beautiful story of family and togetherness and what brings people together. Your mom deserves her own cooking show, for real. And I just kind of, the little bit that I know about the production and your background is you do have sort of like a production background, like a commercial production. And I was curious like how that lens led you to want to tell your own personal story, because it's very, very well told, and the treasure trove of family photos is really astonishing. Great use of archival.
Thank you. So I want to give a shout out first to my mom, who is actually in the audience. ever seen this film. And it's so crazy that when I was actually like shooting her, she thought I was just doing photography, so she didn't realize that it was going to be like a full-fledged film. And when she was watching it, she was like, I didn't realize, where did that photo come from? Or when did you catch me doing this? And so it kind of, as a documentarian, it is, you know, you want to disappear. You don't, you know, you want the subject to be in their natural environment. So I think in a way I accomplished that. And so, yeah, she totally deserves to have her own cooking show. So.
I think so too. This was also like the location that you shot. It was also your childhood home.
Yes.
Okay. And where is that? Where did you shoot?
This was shot in Waycross, Georgia, which is known for the Okefenokee Swamp, and so it's right on the Florida-Georgia border. So it's very, very rural. And so growing up, we were pretty much like a handful of Asian families that were in that small town.
Very cool. For the Spells crew, I really can't get over how much detail went into the film. How like when I'm watching it, I really do feel like I'm watching like a condensed version of a feature. It's just so well thought out and it's so well photographed. And I know that you guys wore like so many hats in creating it. I was just curious about like what the influences were like going into it, and like is it part of like a larger narrative? Because I could really see this continuing, and I wasn't ready for it to be over when the credits rolled, you know?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yes, the beginning of this journey, so I'm actually a music producer by trade, and this has kind of been my foray into filmmaking. And, you know, I think as a music producer, we just get so used to helping artists try to figure out their vision, you know, helping them realizing it, you know, giving them tools necessary to kind of accomplish it. And I think as all great art starts, one of the artists that I was working with who was featured in the film, we had an argument, actually. And it was an argument about a project that we were working on, and it got shelved. And we spent so much time on it, and you know, I think I was super frustrated. And one of the things that we talked about was this idea that the reason you feel that frustrated is because you don't have your own art, where you get to decide if you shelf it or not. So fast forward 3 weeks later, we were just out in the desert, no scripts, a lot of psychedelics, if you couldn't tell. And yeah, we just honestly, we freestyled kind of the whole thing. And it was amazing because it was a very different approach to filmmaking. Like we just kind of went in with a certain level of intention, and then honestly, we're just guided through the process, essentially. And so a lot of these were like abstract ideas that kind of just took shape in front of the camera. And then what we did when we came back from the desert is we watched all the footage, and we did a really interesting project where we took some of the music that we had been making and we actually made orchestral versions of that music to kind of score this film, and that's where DJ stepped in.
I mean, I've known Nana for quite a while. We toured the world together and did a lot of music together and stuff like that. And he just hit me up one day and was like, hey, let's, you know, I got something I want you to put your ears on and see if you can help me with. And that started like a 2-year journey of just kind of sitting in his living room, listening to music, laying down in the middle of the floor, just playing like There Will Be Blood soundtrack and just all this like different, you know, random stuff, and like having it inform like exactly what he wanted to do. And from there, he just started bringing in musicians and tracking violins and stuff like that, and just kind of like finding a conceptual like format for the story to tell it. To be honest, this is the first time I've seen the movie, right? From start to, I've seen all that fucking footage so many times, but this is the first time I've seen it start to finish, so I was like completely blown away. I was sitting back there and I was like, holy shit, this actually came together, you know? But no, really, no, honestly, because you watch an idea come from like nothing and into the world. Not to say he's a music maker, but he's really just a creative that like brings things into the world, you know? And it's really cool to see something come from somebody's head and be an actual product into the world, or just like a piece of art or anything, you know what I mean? So that was like a really fun process. And he didn't speak on it, but yeah, it was like part of a larger idea. And it feels like to me that like you can't even get all that in a 15-minute film, but he managed to do it. So, but yeah, it was really fun process.
Yeah, kind of knowing the background of that too, I'm very curious about the process of the actual like location shooting too, because were you just going through and like, I have an idea and I need this.
We were literally going from scene to scene. Literally scene to scene. So yeah, we were literally out in the desert. And again, I don't recommend this for any young filmmakers in here. It's probably best to get a producer and plot everything out. But again, we were kind of just led. But I literally was like, we would set up a scene, start shooting it, and then in the middle of shooting, as soon as I felt comfortable with the scene, I'd jump in a Jeep and just find the next location. Yeah.
That's an insane way to work,
Yeah.
but it pays off.
Yeah, shrooms will make you do some things. Yeah.
Do we have questions from the audience? I mean, we're all here and everyone is on stage, so let's go if you got them. Sure, yes.
This is for everybody, or anybody who wants to answer. How did you feel watching this? Like, I don't know if it was just your first time seeing it on the big screen or whatnot, but how did you feel tonight seeing it?
Being the first time I've seen this, like I love this theater. It's my favorite theater in Atlanta. I come to a lot of like 70mm films here and stuff. So just seeing this film on the screen in this auditorium was absolutely mind blowing to me. And it was like super special. You know what I mean? So I was really, really super excited to see it. Your film was fucking amazing. Your film was fucking amazing. I really love this body horror thing and like all the like weirdness that you did. Like I'm a big fan of stuff like that, so it was really, really wonderful to see stuff like that. And your film was like really super touching. Like it felt like, you know, like what do they call it? Like a garden path sentence where it starts one way with your film and then completely ends up body horror down here. So it was like really, you know, really for me it was like a really, really fun thing. And whoever did the muscle milk, I'm the best guy. Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
He's a Canadian filmmaker who unfortunately isn't with us, or couldn't be here tonight. He's still with us.
He was actually the guy in the urn.
Yeah, spoiler alert. How did it feel watching it with your mother on screen?
It felt really amazing because you know, for me, being selected for the Atlanta Film Festival felt like a homecoming of sorts because I left, because I was a producer at CNN for like over 10 years, and then I left to go to school, and then to come back after maybe like 8 or 7 years to be embraced by the community is so great, and to see it with my mother has been so heartwarming, and yeah, like seeing it in this theater and how crisp and clear everything was, because I shot it all myself and edited, and so I was like, this little film is not going to get into this festival, and it was such a beautiful surprise.
And it looks fantastic as well. Yeah, you did a great job. Seeing it for yourself. What do you think?
I was quite nervous because I saw your mother was here. And I thought it was very interesting because we got some early laughs, and I felt like that was the first time I heard people had that reaction. That was actually quite exciting for me. And so yes, the theater is beautiful. It's a really special experience, and I love the crowd. So thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, I feel like we've done a few screenings and generally it's quite silent, right? It's quite quiet, but you guys are like a really cool crowd, honestly. Yeah, so it's really interesting to see what people react to at which moments, so yeah.
I'm gonna take a moment to be incredibly vulnerable and say, I love this theater. This is an incredible festival and I'm so grateful. I also find, and I said this to someone earlier, and I'm staring straight at you, ideally, your taste will always outpace your skill. And so I found that today, watching this again, and I say this also with tremendous pride and gratitude for everyone who worked on this project, and it was one of those moments of like, okay, great. My taste is now elevated again. And so now it's time to make something new, I think. So it was one of those moments. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience with you guys and such a wonderful audience. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Right here.
I have a question for Strawberry Shortcake. That movie was And I just wanted to know, like, you said that the movie, it was like personal. You don't have to get into it, but I just, because you said that you didn't want to. But I just wanted to know, like, was that process, how was the process like as far as like making it? Like, was it like a painful process or like a healing process?
Yeah, surprisingly, it was quite a healing journey, and I feel like I'm on the best terms with my mom somehow after making this, and she hasn't seen it, and I don't think she will ever. But yeah, I mean, when we're doing production design, we borrowed a lot of her clothes, a lot of the items we see in the film is actually from her, and she didn't even ask me what I was using them for. She's just like, oh, you're making a film, okay, here you go. And so it's very, very personal in that regard, but somehow it brought us closer, even though it's a very difficult process. And Pierre, really helped me out with the production part of it, so he could speak to that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think first, like, looking for actors in Taiwan, I think this film specifically requires the actresses to give a lot of themselves. So I think having us go through Devin's personal life and having that dialogue with the crew and the cast from the very beginning really helped us build trust with the cast and crew, and for the whole story to come together in a more authentic way, I would say. Because on a script level, one might understand a completely different story than I think if we experienced it. That was my experience when I first read the script, but after traveling to Taiwan and going to your mom's home and picking out like bit by bit and her telling us all the little stories with every clothing, it was a journey, let's say. But yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for your question.
I hope it makes you feel a little more comfortable. In the back, yeah.
I have another question for the director of Strawberry Shortcake. I don't know if this is weird to ask, but are you already working on a new project?
Yes, I'm working on multiple projects. I'm hoping there will be a feature version of this. Yeah.
Okay, because I guess the question that I had was about the genre, and it's sort of, I was curious watching it, I thought, oh, what will you do next? And do you feel like you'll keep working in sort of the same genre of what that is?
Yeah, I generally really love genre films, and but I feel like I pivot between really serious genre films like that, what we just watched, but then also the next one will be a horror comedy, but everything I love bloody stuff, so and I like really strong visuals that can make you uncomfortable or could stimulate you. But so I think I will stick with the genre films for now, but who knows,
Got time for a couple more questions. Did we have one in the back over here earlier a second ago? No? Okay.
They're on your right, bro.
Oh, there we are. Someone. Where to go? Let's go. There you are. Thank you.
I have a question for the director of Belly Belly. I thought
I didn't direct it, but keep going.
Oh, so sorry. Still, question remains for you. I thought the escalation of the scene in the restaurant and like how overlapping the inner monologue and then the actual dialogue, I thought that was so cool. I'm so curious what it was like to shoot that and how many. I would love to know.
Are you asking about our spit buckets?
Please, yes.
Cool. We didn't have any. So here's the thing. When we approached this project, I'm exaggerating slightly. Our director Gabe was so wonderful about being very, very clear about where she needed to see the sort of like musculature of our throats moving, and when we could kind of not really be eating stuff. That being said, the sushi day, we were 100% eating all of that. And part of the process of identifying who should play Alyssa was also, Katie was someone that I had met on set, and we had had a conversation that had some sort of weird coded eating disorder language in it. And she walked up to me one day and she said, "What's your safe food?" And that was the moment that I was like, oh, she has to be the person. So that's all to say that it was a very, very supportive environment to sort of do this in. But also, like, when you're, I don't know, what you see is kind of it. I will also say though, the sushi wasn't the hard part. The whipped cream for a 12-hour day and having everybody smell like sour milk, that was kind of rough.
We had that too.
Yeah. Nobody talks about the sour milk.
The whole tatami room.
Yeah. Especially if you're like making out with milk products.
Gross.
Yeah.
Time for one more, maybe? Yeah, sure, in the back. Yeah, you, yeah.
So this is also for Belly Belly.
Yo.
Just the close-ups of the food eating again. Was there reference like Duck You Sucker or any other like films that you watched prior to get that right? Because it's
Yeah,
so
so
very unique shots.
so I just want to be clear. Are you talking about the shots of like the food going into the mouth or the close shots of the food being prepared?
Sorry, the food going into the mouth.
Got it. So I think the closest things were probably like, and I've mentioned this film twice this week, but Fresh in 2022 was a big one because of the way the sort of like consumption in a really like fancy, heightened gourmet way then dovetails into self-consumption or cannibalism. Not to spoil it if you haven't seen it. So that was one, and then I would say that the other stuff was kind of just like how close can we get to the food as opposed to trying to find very specific tonal comps for those shots, if that helps to answer that. I'm taking that as a yes.
Before we wrap up, I also just want to make sure that if you can support these films by rating them on Letterboxd, like if you see it up there, just make sure that you can heart it or anything to sort of get light on it, because a lot of these films it's like the first time that people are seeing it, and they always need a healthy festival run in order to get more people in on what we just saw. Got time for like maybe one more question? Sure.
I have a question for Rice and Octave. I wanted to know what inspired you to make the film.
Inspiration for the film?
Definitely my mother, and I want this to inspire everyone to have those difficult conversations with their parents. Like when I was making this short film with my mom, the next film was going to be about my dad, and sadly he passed away in December, and so I never had a chance to make that film. And so I hope this will be an inspiration to help, especially for especially for Asians, the relationships that we have with our parents are very complicated, and it's hard to have those conversations, but then when you have it, like it's absolutely worth it to have it, because you never know, when the next time you will talk to them. So.
That's a great answer. I guess just going down for one last final question. We've already touched on it a little bit, but what are you working on next, and how can people see more of your work or hear more of your work?
No, absolutely. So I don't know, for me, this just inspired me to go deeper into writing. And so we have about 7 or 8 more projects that we're getting ready to start working on. But yeah, if you want to follow us, our handle is &allspells on Instagram, and Nana Kwabena personally, and my friend over here is also getting into writing and directing as well. I just forced you into that.
You got a film for us? Yeah.
No, I don't. Number one, I don't have a film for you. I just tinkering around, kind of wrote a cartoon, but we'll see where that goes. I'm just an audio engineer, man. I just like messing around, doing whatever. So, yeah.
Everyone's welcome. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And what's next for you?
So I want to turn Rice and Grits into a platform, especially for the Asian American community in the South. I want to use it to be a place where we share more stories about Asian Americans, especially in the South, because there's not a lot of them, and especially of the rural communities. which, again, there's not a lot of stories. And so I just want to use Rice and Grits as a platform to elevate and to spread more stories.
So I'm shooting another short film next, and it's called Trauma Dumpling. And so it's a horror comedy about an Asian American family eating, making dumplings, and then two people come into their home to terrorize and accuse them of eating dogs, and we see what happens. And then I'm also working on the feature version of Strawberry Shortcake, and another feature I'm working on is based on the short that my first short made called Mom If I Were a Vampire, and it's a queer vampire story. So,
Yeah, all of these projects.
Yeah, similarly, writing process, I'm not gonna logline you, I'm keeping it secret, but we've got a few things in the works. There's a short project being actively compressed from 35 pages into something that's actually short, and a feature being written, and then just a lot of things. I'm gonna drop my Instagram though, because that was smart. I'm at Helena Bonham CrossFit on Instagram, so feel free to connect.
Thank you so much for being here. One more time for the artists. Please feel free to ask questions out in the lobby, and thank you so much for being here. The Atlanta Film Festival starts again tomorrow, very, very early, so let's get to watching more films. Thanks so much for being here.